because these
believe it.
speakers to
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Abdullah Salifou. I work for UNESCO Regional Office in Abuja. I want to welcome you at this session, a roundtable particularly dedicated to the third World Higher Education Conference. The thematic of our meeting is implementing the UNESCO Africa Regional Convention on the Recognition of Qualifications in Higher Education, Challenges and Opportunities for Regional Academic Mobility. The chair of this session is our Regional Director, Mrs. Lydia Brito. Let me tell you a few words on her. Mrs. Lydia Brito, she is a forest engineer with a master and doctorate in forest and wood science from Colorado State University, USA. Former Minister of Higher Education, Science and Technology from 2000 to 2005 of Mozambique. She also served as Vice Rector for Academic Affairs of Eduardo Mondlane University from 1980 to 2000. She joined UNESCO in 2009 as Director for Science Policy and Sustainable Development at Natural Science Sector in Paris. And in 2014, she was appointed as Regional Director for Science in Latin America and Caribbean region, Montevideo. She is leading UNESCO team in Harare as UNESCO Regional Director for Southern Africa. Her areas of expertise range from forestry and sustainable management of natural resources to higher education, science and technology, policy and program as part of public policy for sustainable development. I will stop here because the CV is very long. So, Mrs. Lydia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I don't need the podium because I do have a microphone. So welcome all to this very interesting and very important session for the African higher education. Not only for the students, the African students, and foreign students that want to study in Africa, but also for the African institutions that have really to come together in order to make sure that student mobility, university collaboration, higher education relevance to the continent development are at the core, really, of the Addis Convention. And I think this session, it's about that. It's about how can we make sure that this commitment from the member states of Africa, we have already 13 countries that have ratified the Addis Convention. We are hoping that many of you ministers, excellencies, really make sure that you do ratify, your countries ratify this convention. And also, how can we make sure that this convention that is taking into consideration the context of African higher education can really talk with the global convention, because really higher education doesn't belong to any country. Higher education is a public good, is a global public good, and we do need to make sure that our systems can talk to each other in order to advance not only the quality and the excellence that we want for the graduates that we put forward. We are building the transformative generations of the future, and therefore excellence in training is very important. But also we need to build the research capacity, the joint addressing of the global challenges. And we have to do that together, because more than ever, we need integration, we need multidisciplinarity, we need transdisciplinarity, and more than ever also, we need cross-scaling interventions. Today we can say, I'm solving my country's problem, without looking at the region, without looking globally. And we can say we are really all together in this World Higher Education Conference, and we are solving all the global issues without addressing the local issues that all of us face and that our societies face in day-to-day life. So this panel is wonderful because of that, because we are going to have a chance to really see how can we work with these different conventions at different scales, and how can we make sure that we work together to achieve the goals of these conventions, that is really promoting mobility, cooperation, and growing together for the higher education in Africa and in the world. We have quite a great panel. Some of them could not be here. Some will be with us and will join us in the stage. And so we are going to start with 3 goodwill messages, because we have champions for these conventions. We have wonderful champions that are talking to governments and making sure that these conventions are ratified by the governments. And so we are going to start, and I'm not calling the panel to come here now, because we will have videos and PowerPoint presentations, but then at the end we will join all of us together in the stage. But the first, and I'm going to break protocol, I'm sorry. I'm not going to read that very long, wonderful bios of our speakers, because otherwise we use the hour and a half that we have. So I'm just going to give the current titles, and I'm sure that you can Google them. We have also copies of the CVs, so please do come to us if you want to know more about our speakers. So the first one, and he could not join us physically, but he sent us a video, is Mr. Mohamed Belyosin. He is the Commissioner for Education, Science and Technology and Innovation from the African Union Commission. So please, let's put the video, and thanks again for joining us.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates and participants, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to stand on established protocols. It's such a great pleasure for me to join you virtually today on this special occasion at the sidelines of the World Higher Education Conference. Let me, on my behalf and on that of the African Union Commission, express our profound appreciation to UNESCO and other partners for the excellent organization of the conference. And I recall the long-standing partnership between AUC and UNESCO that led to the adoption of the Addis Convention in 2014. Colleagues, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this meeting is particularly instructive, being a follow-up to the first meeting of the Addis Convention held in Lomé, Togo. We, at the highest level of the African Union, have called for the harmonization and strengthening of the quality of higher education in Africa to make it both locally relevant and globally competitive, in line with the aspirations of the AU's Agenda 2063. You will recall that the heads of state and government of the African Union have further institutionalized their appreciation of the role of higher education in achieving the AU vision by taking a decision calling for mechanisms for harmonization and quality assurance to ensure comparable higher education in Africa, and for the establishment of an accreditation and quality agency at the continental level. The Addis Convention on Mutual Recognition of Qualifications in Higher Education and the effort around its implementation is a culmination of Africa's long-term desire for harmonized higher education systems that can facilitate the mobility of trained people with accredited qualifications. Ladies and gentlemen, this harmonization we speak of implies a shared vision on quality criteria and standards and comparable ways of assessing the quality of higher education. A key milestone for fostering this harmony within the diverse African higher education systems is the establishment of a continental quality assurance framework, as I said before. Therefore, the AUC initiated the development of the Pan-African Quality Assurance and Accreditation Framework, which we call PACAF, to provide a continental platform for enhancing the provision of higher education quality and promoting compatible methodologies. Ladies and gentlemen, to advance the ratification of the Addis Convention and its implementation, there is an urgent need to amplify our advocacy and create awareness about the Convention and its usefulness among all stakeholders, including parliamentarians. As key implementing agencies, universities should also champion the Convention and popularize its relevance. On our part, as the African Union Commission, we continue to call on member states who are yet to ratify the Convention to do so. Before I conclude, I would like to recall that we are going towards an African free trade zone, and in this context, the harmonization of programs is even more important than ever. I would like to conclude by giving you the assurance that the African Union Commission will continue to provide all possible support for the successful implementation of the Addis Convention. I wish you all fruitful deliberations and productive discussions as I look forward to seeing the recommendations of your conference. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
And really, it's very important that we have the support from the African Union, because it's there that really the regional policies at highest level are discussed, and therefore having the commissioner really addressing us, it's very important, and again, stressing why it's so important that we harmonize our systems of higher education and how can we collaborate together. Our next speaker, and thank you very much for being with us, Professor Slim Kalbos. Professor Kalbos is now director of the Agence Universitaire de la Francophonie. He was also Minister of Higher Education and then Education from Tunisia. And really, I think his perspectives from the different roles will be of utmost importance for this panel. So please, Professor Kalbos, and you will speak in French. So if you need translation, please do make sure that you have the translation. As you wish, Professor.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Je suis très heureux.
I'm very pleased to be with you all this morning. Let me first, though, to very briefly introduce to you the Agence Universitaire de la Francophonie, AUF. AUF is an international organization that provides assistance to countries in their efforts to reform their school and university systems. Today, we have more than 1,000 universities and research centers that are members of our organization. This makes AUF the leading university network in the world. These 1,000 universities come from 120 different nations. So yes, of course, we work in French-speaking countries, but not only that, and not only there, because people need our assistance and want to be members from all over the world. We provide countries when it comes to doing far-reaching reforms, focusing on employability, entrepreneurship, the digital transformation, innovation, pedagogical innovation, teacher training, applied research, and R&D. And we are also engaged in advocacy for issues such as gender equality in the academic world and sustainable development. And that is why we have so many activities that intertwine with UNESCO's activities. I'm, in fact, very grateful to UNESCO for having invited us to participate in this beautiful event. Now, Africa. For AUF, Africa is our top priority. This is where we have the largest footprint, the greatest presence. Today, there are 400 African universities that are members of AUF, 400 universities. And we have a presence through our teams and offices in 40 African states. That gives you a picture of how committed our organization is. We invest throughout Africa, investing in knowledge in primary schools for training school teachers, for secondary education, teacher training, and a system for guiding students towards higher education, and then different bridges going from all of these different tracks into higher education. And of course, we work downstream from the university as well when it comes to employment and professional autonomy. So today we will have an interesting panel discussing this convention that is so important. It calls on the African states to implement a system for recognizing qualifications of higher education, and not just to facilitate international cooperation and mobility, but it's especially important for us because this will help countries have better governance in educational and higher education institutes. This to us is the overarching strategic objective for the years ahead. Let me just mention a few of the examples of things that are contained within the convention. First of all, the need to come up with a specific definition of conditions for access and admission, governance issue. Also, the absolute imperative to set up a process making all of the information available to all. Again, this is another concern for good governance. The convention also sent out a very strong recommendation calling for the establishment of dedicated units to focus on issues such as assessment and accreditation. Again, this is a question of sound governance. And perhaps the most important thing is the establishment of effective mechanisms for quality assurance and accreditation. Now, what does all of this mean? This means that all of these things that are enshrined in this convention, once countries sign up to it, it will enable countries to constantly improve their HEIs and the governance of those HEIs. Now, we in the UAF believe that there are some pretty hard prerequisites that you have to be able to obtain before you can ensure such levels of quality and quality assessment. Let's take this one step further and look at the issue of mobility. When we talk about mixed diplomas and cooperation between HEIs, we have identified three key areas. First, you need the political will. You need the political determination to invest in a long process that will be difficult, but that is at the same time very effective and very efficient for their university systems. The second prerequisite, you have to effect absolute reciprocity between the countries that have signed up to the convention. The principle of reciprocity is paramount. So what this means is that if there's a refusal to recognize a degree, is something that is actually very exceptional and grounded in facts. So reciprocity, political will, and then the third condition that we need for the convention to be successful is the application of social bonus goods. Because what we have to think about is improving the employability of African youth, which today has been so hard hit by unemployment or poor use of their skill sets. They work in sectors that are not adapted to their skill levels, or it's the brain drain, and they leave their countries to go to places where there are greater economic prospects. So this is another one of the key linchpins for success of the convention. So that's our interpretation of the Addis Ababa Convention. It's of high strategic value, and we're always ready to cooperate with the committee of the convention and all other stakeholders who would like to see this strategic convention be fully implemented. Thank you for your attention.
Merci beaucoup, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor.
Rappel pour ici. So thank you very much for not only reminding us of the key points of the convention, but also how can we make it work. And thanks for calling the attention to the political will that is so important to drive this kind of processes, but also between the institutions of higher education, the issues of reciprocity, and how can we really work together to make sure that our students have the best in our region. Our next Goodwill Messenger, let's say, it's also in video, unfortunately he had to leave today. It's Mr. Zachary Lear. He's the representative of the Secretary General of CAMS. So the video, no? CAMS. The sound. Abdoulaye, there is no sound.
The UNESCO Provost, distinguished invités, mesdames et messieurs.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm taking the floor on behalf of Abdou Nogo, who is the Secretary General of AMIS. I would simply wish to express my deep gratitude to UNESCO for having associated CAMS with this very important event. The convention signed in Addis Ababa is something that ties in well with the third World Higher Education Conference. I would also like to, again, express our permanent desire to always have stronger ties of cooperation with you so that we can have qualitative improvements in our systems for the benefit of our citizens. The Addis Convention was adopted in 2014, but it only came into effect in December 2019 once the requisite number of states had ratified it. Now, many African organizations have been working for developing universities back in 1968. In Madagascar, there was an initiative that brought in citizens from 19 different countries, from West Africa, Central Africa, and the Indian Ocean. In keeping with our mission statement, CAMUS is an observatory interested in the fields of quality assurance and facilitation services for institutions of higher learning and research. This is the way that we can build greater solidarity and mutual understanding amongst the member states. We can set up a permanent culture and scientific exchanges, share all publications from university and research centers, and all across the entire board of issues that relate to higher education. We will benefit greatly from the comprehensive implementation of this convention. This is the best way for us to work together, to harmonize our curricula, and to see greater take-up and hiring in institutions of higher education and research. We should do everything we can to foster greater cooperation amongst the institutes and sounder governance and better management practices. Ladies and gentlemen, this event brings us together to strengthen cooperation for the implementation of the Addis Convention so that it may be more swiftly implemented. It gives us an opportunity to identify the difficulties and challenges we face presently and in the future. And it makes it possible also for us to keep one another apprised of all of the steps that we are making to implement the convention, explaining the link between the Addis Convention and the World Convention. Let me just very quickly share with you some of the things that our institution has been doing to foster cooperation when it comes to academic mobility and quality assurance. In 1972, my organization adopted its first convention, and that really is the bedrock of everything that we've done for the system of mutual recognition of diplomas and quality assurance. The Lomé Convention is actually this document, and in that document, the contracting parties committed to recognizing university degrees from other member states with the same legal validity as a national diploma. Now, this is a principle required that a certain scientific, pedagogical, and institutional criteria would have to be borne in mind for accreditation. And our system for promoting professors and researchers has led to the creation of a variety of different committees and technical committees that help, again, build closer ties between the higher educational institutions in member states. And that really, as I said, is the very basis of creating this common academic space. In 2013, as we entered the 21st century and working with different cooperation agencies from the African Union and across the world. In 2019, 2020, and 2022, we've been implementing the latest phases of this plan that's based on quality assurance as mainstreamed. It's one of the cornerstones of this entire 5-year plan. This is a model that was first originally developed in China and has then been adopted by South Africa as well, and it's proven its worth. Instead of working about long-range missiles and investing in atom bombs, it's just much better to improve the quality of education and to make sure that we are not in a situation where the schools are empty and falling apart. We have a shortage of doctors. We have so many bankers, yet we don't have all the people out there despite the fact that we have all of the knowledge. And if education falls through the floor, the entire country goes down with it. When it comes to quality assurance and the risks associated with that, we have recently established partnerships with the West African Economic Community, DRD, the African Union, and many others. And with UNESCO, CAMUS is the lead partner for a series of activities within the regional group for coordinating SDG 4 activities in West Africa. The objective of this group is to establish networking opportunities and partnerships focusing on quality education on a basis of equality, and so that we can offer learning possibilities for people throughout their lives. We've in fact set up a monitoring program to make sure that the plan itself is being implemented properly, and this will strengthen systems for quality assurance and accreditation. So we recently in Yaoundé in Cameroon, we had brought together about 1,000 experts to discuss quality assurance and the Addis Convention. As you can see, CANUS is really at the crossroads where all of these different stakeholders can come and meet to transform higher education, where we are trying to see greater flexibility in terms of access to knowledge and developing knowledge. All of this, of course, can only have positive benefits for African society and for global society as well. Mobility is very important, and we know that institutions of higher learning are fully aware of the challenges that we face, and the Addis Convention and the World Convention for Mutual Recognition of Diplomas is something that establishes quality assurance requirements on all of the states and institutions that are involved in these exchanges. And this is of fundamental importance for the future of African countries. So we remain willing to work closely with all of our partners to draw people's attention to the importance of this for building the Africa that we want, one that is integrated, prosperous, and one that is at long last managed by its own citizens and represents a dynamic force for good in the world. We have the Solidarity Action Plan of the Lomé Convention, which encourages us to do this. We remain convinced that, as the wise man once said, if we go forward together fast, we'll wind up going slow. So I think that what we should try to do is create, again, this African space of higher education and research. Thank you very much.
Merci.
Thank you.
Interesting perspectives on the importance of circulation, of knowledge, of capacity, really to build not only the higher education landscape, and we have seen that in particular in new areas of research, not every country, not every region in Africa have enough capacity to pursue research and even higher training in those areas, and really using the convention to guarantee that the pool of knowledge that we have in the continent can indeed be used in several regions and make it work. But for that, of course, the importance of accreditation, of quality insurance, of recognition of degrees, but also in a way harmonization, how we look at our training, higher level training. So really thank you very much again to CAMES for being one of our partners in promoting the harmonization of degrees and the development of higher education in our region. We are now starting with a more specific panel, and we have also again very important brains and figures in the African landscape of higher education, and really thank you to our panelists for joining us. And what we have asked them to do is to really reflect in a few key points that we think are important for this discussion. And one is really what are the strengths of the Addis Convention in terms of revitalizing the landscape of higher education in Africa. What does that convention brings that can make higher education landscape in Africa more alive, more responsive? The other one is what are the necessary conditions to operationalize the Addis Convention on the continent? And thanks to our Goodwill champions, they have already advanced some of the proposals. And I think this is a point that I would like us to discuss, because this is at the core of the implementation of the convention. Also, how can the roadmap that was adopted just last year in November of the Addis Convention really be implemented, and how can we accelerate that implementation of the roadmap? We have already 13 signatures, so we have enough countries beyond the convention, but how can we make sure that the roadmap that was discussed with the committee and with the member states can indeed be implemented so that we can accelerate this movement of harmonization? And finally, how do the Addis Convention really talks to the global convention? Because again, we are not isolated, we are part of a world landscape of higher education, and how can these two conventions really work in a synergetic way in order to push this harmonization, this circularization, this more mobility of higher education academics, students, critical mass, human capital, in order to push the development agenda. So our first speaker, it's Professor Olusola Bandele Owewol. Professor Owewol is the Secretary General of the African Association of Universities, a great partner of UNESCO. He was also previously the Vice Rector of the Federal University of Agriculture in Abeokuta in Nigeria. So really, Professor, you have all these movements. The CV is very long, but these two, let's say, places are very important for this discussion. So thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much, the Chair. And let me thank UNESCO for inviting me to this particular panel. I'm going to speak on the opportunities and challenges of the Addis Convention. The Addis Convention, as we all know, is the revised convention on the recognition of studies, certificates, diplomas, degrees, and other academic qualifications in higher education in African states. You may be wondering why I should be talking about the Addis Convention. I represent the Association of African Universities. We are a membership organization of over 450 universities in Africa. And in this, we are interested in quality assurance. We are interested in the quality of higher education. Indeed, we are highly connected with the African Quality Assurance Network, which is a network of quality assurance agencies in the whole of Africa. I'll tell you a story. 2 days ago, I was on the panel for the Global Convention. And on the panel with me was a lady from Afghanistan. And this lady shared a story. She said, just 7 months ago, she was displaced away from our country, Afghanistan, and she found herself in Germany. And on getting to Germany, she wanted to continue her education. Her opinion was that she was going to be asked to start from level 0. But to her greatest surprise, She was not asked to start from level 0. In that institution, they were able to bring out all the credits that she had accumulated in Afghanistan, and she was able to continue from where she stopped. Why was this so? It's because in Germany, they recognize what the Global Convention stands for. And it's high time in Africa, we too recognize what the Global Convention, not just the Global Convention, but the Addis, African Convention, Addis Convention stands for. Number one, it stands for the recognition of certificates. If your country recognizes this convention, and your citizen find yourself in a situation like that Afghanistan lady, then that convention will work for you. You don't need to lose your past learning to be able to advance your future. This convention promotes mobility of students and mobility of academic staff. This convention encourages academic collaboration among nations. I was coming from a panel now, and I said, it's high time we promote South-South collaboration. And I tell you, this is an instrument that can help us to promote South-South collaboration. It will make it easy for us to access knowledge for our development. Unfortunately, these major things which I've just said to you appears not to be clear to many of us in the African continent, and we need to emphasize this. There are many opportunities offered by the Addis Convention whenever we connect to it. One, it provides the framework for recognition of academic qualifications. You can bring your qualification from East Africa and then make it acceptable. Situation now where you can become a qualified medical practitioner in East Africa and cannot use that certificate to practice in West Africa is not in our interest as Africans. And this convention will help us to bridge this gap among us. It builds and supports collaboration, cooperation, especially South-South cooperation. And I believe that in some areas of Africa, we complain about not having enough teachers. Whereas in some other parts of Africa, we have enough teachers, overproduced teachers. With this convention, it should be possible for us to move around our graduates and help to solve problems of employability in different parts of Africa. This convention will improve the quality of higher education in Africa through the promotion of internationalization. I tell you, when this convention was put up, little did anybody expect that we are going to have COVID-19. But looking at the contents of the convention, the content of this convention is so good that it can help nations to meet up to the challenges of the COVID-19. For example, it helps us, it promotes, the context of the convention promotes information and communication technologies. It is a convention that can help us to improve teaching and learning through open and distance learning, cross-border education, and the use of open educational resources. These are information that are contained in that convention, which many people may not know. Really, this convention helps us to promote mutual recognition of studies, diplomas, and degrees in our continent. Ladies and gentlemen, it's high time we highlight the importance of this convention in Africa. What are the challenges with this convention? To me, the first major challenge we have is that many people lack adequate information about the convention. I'm not sure that many ministers of education in Africa knows about this convention. It's high time we allow the people who take decisions in government know about the benefits of this convention. I know that this is not the first time we'll be talking about this convention. Many of us who are here will remember Arusha Convention. It's the same convention that has got to be improved. But one major challenge of that Arusha Convention is also affecting the current convention. And that major challenge is that many nations lack national regulatory agencies. And when you do not have national regulatory agencies and probably decisions about how to establish a university will be taken by one man, the president, that country may probably have a problem. Really, lack of national regulatory agencies in many countries is affecting this. And it's high time we tell ourselves. I think the last time I made a count, we just have about 24 countries with national regulatory agencies, giving guidance to the quality of higher education. Absence of this may affect this convention. I thought that another challenge may be the stakeholders' liturgy. Who are the stakeholders? I believe that those of us who are seated here. Who are the stakeholders? It may be you, like that Afghanistan lady who found herself in a strange country and who may need to connect to this convention to be able to advance our education. And the question the information we have is that so far we have 13 countries in Africa that have ratified that, and then we have one other country, Cote d'Ivoire, who had ratified the Global Convention, but yet to ratify the Addis Convention. I think we should add that to it to make it 14, if you've done the global one. And so what is the way forward? I believe that the way forward is that those countries, 14 countries who have ratified this convention, should constitute themselves to a consortium and let them go ahead and push forward with this convention. I also believe that all of us, organizations like ours, Association of African Universities, it's high time we start to promote this convention, organize workshops, get people together to discuss on the benefits of this convention, bring out Africans like that Afghanistan who had benefited from this convention and let them speak to the public. And all of us present here today, we need to go back home and speak to our people and tell them that it's necessary to ratify this convention. I believe that with all countries, 14 countries recognizing their own diplomats and encouraging their citizens, others will join. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor, and thank you for reminding us that the solution is in our hands. So we really do have to promote the convention. We really need to talk to our governments. We really need to create this movement and stop the lethargy of stakeholders. The stakeholders, we are the stakeholders. And so definitely I hope that this panel will also be one of the key points and critical points of really starting moving. And thank you very much for the commitment of AAU. You are a very respected organization in our continent. And you do talk to ministers, you do talk to vice chancellors, and really your support in working with us on pushing this, it's really very, very important for this convention and for the benefits of the conventions. And what I like is that the challenges are really in our hands. There is no challenge that we can't change by doing what we are supposed to do in each of our fields of interventions. Well, our second panel speaker is Professor Romila Moi. I hope I'm saying right. She's the commissioner for the Commission of Higher Education in Mauritius, and I think she is the first lady taking this position, as she was the first lady to be the vice chancellor of the University of Mauritius. We have met, I don't know, decades ago. I just say like that because of age issues. But it's really wonderful, Professor Moi, to have you with us, and please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I would like to really thank the UNESCO and especially Mr. Salifou for having invited us to share our views and perspective this morning. I am the Commissioner of the Higher Education Commission, and this presentation, I put it together with one of my colleagues. And we would like to share our views more from a regulator's perspective, because this is so crucial. We've heard, and you would no doubt agree, being the second speaker, it's always difficult to try to make sure that now either I do not repeat or I do not contradict my former, the former speaker. Why this Addis Convention? We've been hearing since the beginning of the session that this is a legal tool, it's a legal platform that is being put in place to increase mobility. But then why? And the why, I think that we have been hearing about that since the beginning of the workshop, of the conference. I've put some data here only on sub-Saharan Africa. I didn't have the time to do for the whole world. But then 2 or 3 important things is that there is going to be increased mobility, and there is a crucial role for the Addis Convention to recognize qualifications to promote that mobility. And these figures, when you look at figures for sub-Saharan Africa, you see that currently there's a student population of 9 million. The GER is 11.7%. The average for Africa is 9%, and the average for other continents can be 30%, 50% for Europe, and as high as 60, 70% for Singapore. So we do have a long way to go to increase access to higher education. These 2 figures give a little bit about inbound mobility. You can see that South Africa does have quite a lot, attracts quite a lot of students from other countries, but these were mainly put for you to see that there is indeed a big mobility in Africa. In terms of the Addis Convention, so we've been hearing that there have been 13 countries that have already ratified this convention, and Mauritius ratified it. It was the 5th country to have deposited the instrument. And we are also very happy to have been given the honor to be the secretariat for the Bureau of the Convention Committee since last year. So together with Mr. Salifou and all of you, we have a very big role to play. And I wanted to put the role of my organization in Mauritius, which is the Higher Education Commission, the apex body under the Ministry of Tertiary Education. We have the director in Mauritius sitting in the audience. And as per the Higher Education Act, the Higher Education Commission is mandated to determine recognition and equivalence of academic or professional qualifications in higher education obtained in or outside Mauritius. And I'm sure people in the audience who are regulators, who have experience with regulations, would know that we have a lot of issues within the country to recognize all that. We have degree mills, we have, I won't say fake qualifications, but qualifications not recognized within the country. We have a lot of issues already within the country. Now imagine where we're trying now, as former speaker said, to recognize from other countries qualifications. We don't have information on them, etc. Here I'm talking really on a practical basis. The whole principle is very interesting, but I can tell you practically on the ground, there are a lot of issues. So what are the strengths? I'm trying to respond to the chair's questions. What are the strengths of the Addis Convention? So as mentioned by everybody, this is a formal legal platform. And I believe something that I would like to highlight, the recognition principles behind this convention. Assessment right, everyone has the right to assess his qualifications, ensure fair and transparent evaluation. Decision is taken by competent authorities in the country. There's an appeal mechanism, and this sort of recognition will give access to further studies in or outside that country, secure jobs, mobility, scholarships, and also help with employability. And all these, when you put together, when we manage to implement all that, we'll give greater access to education that is really needed. Again, I won't repeat it, mobility, etc. Capacity building. So I heard the former speaker, the professor, talk about only 24 countries having quality assurance frameworks. So with the convention, we will have to have capacity building. We'll have to strengthen our own local quality assurance frameworks and ensure, I'll come back to quality assurance in blended learning in a few moments. And then, of course, to make sure that it is recognized in other countries, we have to have very robust systems in our country. So we will have to work towards that. Optimize use of resources. Yes, there are so many resources being developed at the level of each country. And then we are duplicating or starting from zero. Why can't we share our resources? And I believe this will be a platform that this convention will help us to share our resources in this specific area. And of course, build cooperation. Challenges. Yes. Right now, I would say one of the challenges that we have is that only 13 or 14 out of 54 African states have ratified this convention. There are 40 left, if we count 14. So we will have to make sure that we are all together in that. And I believe there's a lot of advocacy and influence that has to be done at your levels, at regional level, that we can make this happen. The second, another challenge has been COVID-19, and without realizing it has an impact on whatever we are going to do. COVID-19 has shown us that we couldn't continue with face-to-face learning. We had to go for blended learning or online learning. So many countries for the past 2 years have had to go, many universities have had to go to blended learning, online learning, all kinds of platforms, etc. How this is recognized in qualifications? How do you do as a regulator when you have someone who wants, for example, to come to Mauritius, comes, let's say, from any country, okay, I would say Zambia or South Africa, or country X, and then gives us a qualification that was from an online provider there that is not recognized by that own country? Do we say no? There are many issues like that happening right now, especially with private online providers. I'm not hitting on them, I'm just highlighting an issue that we have to recognize, and we have to start working on that. We have to be ahead to be able to recognize all these people that are doing online and blended learning, micro-credentials, etc. Even in Mauritius, we launched last year a scholarship program for Coursera, Udemy, and Grow with Google. We have 2,000 learners registered, and we had 4,000. 2,000 have completed. Some have done 50 courses. And now when it comes to recognition or a pathway in a university, sorry, we do not have the framework yet, or we cannot recognize that. So you see, all this has to be there. So there's going to be, we've heard about that at the Futures of Education. We know about that, we like it or not. There are going to be a lot of short courses, micro-credentials, digital badges there, lying across the continent, that will be recognized by industry. So learners will go for them, they want to be employed, but then what happens to regulators, government agencies, and how will that happen? And of course, we talk about QA structures. What are the conditions to operationalize the Addis Convention on the continent? Create awareness, advocacy to encourage member states to ratify this convention. It should not just stay a convention for some few people, then it will defeat the whole purpose of mobility across countries in the continent. Provide focused information on the provisions of Addis Convention. As Professor said, many people do not know what is there in the Addis Convention. For example, there's ODL, there's OER, there's blended learning. I'm pretty sure people don't know. What are we talking about? Right? Explain benefits of ratifying convention, building capacity, creating a portal with relevant information, facilitate access to information. So us as a regulator, whenever we get qualifications from all around the world in Mauritius. So then we start contacting ENIC, we start contacting France, we start contacting UGC in India, and then we lose time in the process. And it's not an easy process because we have a handbook. How updated is that handbook? And then because our regulations in all countries is that it has to be recognized in that country, so you have to contact that country. Imagine we had a portal with all this information, a website with all this information there. You can consult the website, then you contact your colleague there in that other country, and you can speed up the process. It will make a difference. It will make a big difference. Networking with other regional conventions. We've heard there are 4 more, the Arab one, Lisbon one, the Tokyo one, and there's one which I missed. Buenos Aires, yeah, it's far from Mauritius, so forgot about it. Right. So this is, I've discussed with, I think Emma is here. Yeah. I discussed with Emma about what is happening there in Latin America, etc. And discussing with colleagues, I believe we could have a very strong network with the other regional conventions. And we have to make ourselves known and know more about the work we are doing, and definitely capacity building in the field of quality assurance, qualification framework, and accreditation, etc. And I would like to highlight one instrument for SADC countries. I'm not again trying to do some preferences, but I had a colleague who has left right now from the SADC Secretariat, and they have just finalized their SADC regional qualification framework, and some countries have already aligned to it, like we, Mauritius, we've aligned to the SADC. So this could be an instrument already for 16 countries. Try to get aligned in terms of qualification frameworks, and another level then would be implementation of that Addis Convention. It will come easy, because we would have like a harmonized qualification framework. Of course, we've got to extend it to all the countries. How can the roadmap adopted by the committee accelerate its implementation? So idea of my dear friend, Mr. Salifu, and this has been discussed at the level of the committee, create the Africa Network of National Information Structures, which is key. That would be ANIC. And that would then have some sort of agreement with UK ERIC, with France and other countries. And then again, this will speed up implementation, promote sharing of information, mutual understanding and transparency between education systems. And once the network is set up, we mentioned that we should have a website. Again, the basic principle, reciprocity. This is what was mentioned by our president from l'AEF. This is fundamental. If all this work is done, at the end of the day, I cannot accept that the other countries' qualifications would be accepted in mine based on this Addis Convention. Then we have a serious problem. That's why we need to have national information structures that would then work together, and setting up of technical committees so that we can have a common QA framework, mechanism, capacity building in these areas. Okay, so just very quickly, the HEC is already working in all these areas. So we would, we are currently reviewing our regulatory framework based on all these new OERs and online providers, etc. We accredit programs from all public and private higher education institutions, so we will have that database. And we are currently developing a national credit value transfer system that will eventually be based on all those credits in these different countries and facilitate assessment of qualifications for recognition. Interactions between Addis Convention and the Global Convention. So definitely it would be international cooperation, consistency in recognition procedures at global level. This is fundamental. If we do not have this kind of consistency, I'm not saying similarity, should not be similar because everyone has their specificities, but there needs to be an evenness and consistency so that we can recognize the other one without any problem. Enhancement of quality of higher education in line with SDG, and of course, increased student mobility, same thing, and recognition of academic credentials as a global right. So in the Global Convention, they put a bit more emphasis on short courses, micro-credentials, digital badges, and all these credentials that are coming up, we like it or not. So I think this would be something that we could take from the Global Convention and work on that. Way forward, okay, so creation of ANIC, or I don't know how Mr. Salifu would want to call that one, African Network of, I think ANIC, right? Network with other regional national information centers, ENIT, APNIC, we have UGC, we have a lot in each country, they have their own. Database portal for accessible data collection and sharing of information, sharing of resources, OER policies, ODL provision with COVID gone or not gone, ODL is here to stay. So we will have to cope with these online providers, capacity building on QA online, how to have standards for quality assurance in online and blended learning. Some countries have it, some regional centers have it, but still, I would say it's still under development. It still has to get approval at regional level, at the macro level, and network with regional and global convention on recognition of qualifications. This we have to push forward. Okay, I just wanted just to put that slide. I know I have to finish, but this is a bit our experience. We've worked with 23 universities in 4 countries to put this quality assurance in online learning. So all these, I'm sure many of you have been doing projects like that. We could share together. I see Mboni here from Eswatini who could be very interested in that. So, I mean, all this, that sharing of resources would help us really to go forward. Right, so this is on the internet if you want to have more information on how we develop quality assurance and implemented it. And that's it. Sorry for taking some more time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you also for bringing very concrete examples and proposals. Please now have a seat, and I will invite the 2 other speakers to join us in the panel here. I wanted just to give time for you, the participants, to ask questions, to bring also issues that may have be out or less explored. Thank you very much. That's fine, thank you. You know, as a former professor, I can stand for many hours. That's part of our taking. No, it's fine. So please, it would be quite interesting because I think we heard several perspectives, but really bringing together the impact and the opportunities that a convention such as this one, it's really bringing to the landscape of higher education in, where is Peter? But you want to do that? Let's discuss. I'm saying to my colleague, Peter Wells is very busy. He's the responsible for this conference. But I think if we can interact, and then I give you 5 minutes at the end to bring them together what we are discussing here, because the idea is that we come out of here energized, with movement, committed, and with very clear ideas. How can we together build the infrastructures, the structures, not infrastructures, the structures, the cooperation, the connections among ourselves so that this convention can indeed become a reality. So do I have any questions, interventions, please? I have already 3. We start with the ladies.
I'm Emma Sabzalieva. I'm at UNESCO ESL.
Okay. We need microphone, sorry, because of translation.
Emma Sabzalieva, UNESCO ESALC. We, as mentioned, hope soon to become the Secretariat for the Buenos Aires Convention, but we have 3 signatories ratifying the Latin America Convention. We need 4 because it's a very small region in comparison to ratify it. So I'd like to ask for your advice. What can we do to advocate further so that other states ratify the regional convention so that ours too comes into force? How can we learn from your experiences? Thank you.
Thank you. Very good question. I will take 2 or 3. Yes, please, sir. Yeah, I have then 3 persons here, and then I will go there.
I would like to make a comment, if it's permitted. I am Dr. Do Pascal. I'm Associate Professor now of Higher Education Management in Finland. I come originally from Cameroon. So I would like to congratulate the Association of African Universities for leading this process. I had a feeling that nation states do not ratify these conventions easily because of the arguments are not strong. We need to tell nation states that if we want to acquire unity, we would go through this higher education mobility. I remember that when the Bologna process in Europe started, some scholars wrote that people who go to the same schools live to know each other and trust each other. So, and for that reason also, I would like to congratulate a new blood in the AAU, which is Professor Damtio Tefera, because he knows how to build these arguments. I would like to make a suggestion which I made to the predecessor of the Secretary General, and I'm very happy that the rector of AUF is here, that we should never be tired to get people in the English space of Africa learn French. and to get those of the other side learn the other language, because one of the problems with this recognition is readability. I speak French, I read English. If you take somebody, I remember Professor Juma Shabani would easily go in. So I think I have a difference in terms of readability. So I just want to propose that we should make it more readable between the two higher education spaces of Africa. This would, since we are now talking about sustainability, would go by building a new cohort of Africans that can read between these two spaces, and then it will be easy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this suggestion, and I think, please, to your the other participant there. The suggestion on language, I think, is a very important point. Please, sir, go ahead.
Bonjour, mon nom c'est...
Hello, my name is Abdelas Aziz. I'm from Senegal. I would like to just speak on behalf of my experience in my country that has ratified the convention. Why did we do this? Well, it's because we wanted to be active in all of the organizations we're part of. And for us, this is a convention that leads to qualitative improvement. It focuses on quality assurance, on the quality of what is on offer, the quality of all of the different approaches to teaching and learning. We ratified it also because it's a driver for innovation. It stresses non-traditional approaches. We saw this in the COVID pandemic for sure, but also focusing on training and on certification of acquired knowledge, all of these things that are necessary to have a healthy evolution of our system, which is what we desire. We also think that the convention embodies values that we also would like to stand up for, values of solidarity, respect for mutual respect amongst the university community. We also believe that when it comes to shareholders and stakeholders, rather, networking is so important. We've got the French-speaking network of French-speaking quality assurance agencies and agents, and it's of vital importance to make sure that quality assurance people and accreditation processes be established so that all of this can grow in a healthy way. But the most important thing about this is it also can act as a sounding board so people can be made aware of the challenges we face. But ratification is critical. Every country that ratifies it has to be able afterwards implement the convention properly. Thank you.
I'm going to change for the other side, can I? And then I come back, just to be fair with the... Okay, so we go this side, and then, yes, I think too. Yes.
Oui, bonjour.
Good morning. I would like to begin by, and I apologize for speaking in French, says the speaker. It's a pleasure for me to be able to congratulate the people behind organizing this morning's session. I'm grateful to you. I would also like to say hello to the director of the AUF, the rector we met in Addis not long ago, and also in Paris. I would also like to say hello to the president of the African Association of Universities, who just, let me introduce myself. I'm the Director General of Higher Education in Côte d'Ivoire, and in that capacity, very often, I chair the commission that reviews equivalence of diplomas in Côte d'Ivoire. And what we see so many diplomas that are coming from all over the world. For example, people from our country will go all over the place. Elsewhere in Africa, they'll go to the Americas, Europe, Asia, Russia, all over the world. And so we always have to face the following question. This diploma that's been presented to us in a given discipline, does the content actually correspond to what our standards are, right? That's why the issue of accreditation and establishment of quality assurance processes is of such vital importance to us. Now, I've heard people say this And I'm not sure if it's somebody's trying to throw, a rock in our garden. Of course, we're trying to get more and more ratification. We haven't done it, you're right. We haven't yet ratified the Addis Convention. I mean, you have to bear this in mind. We haven't done this yet. Côte d'Ivoire, we're friends with everybody. Like I said, we have diplomas from around the world that we have to process. So we need this type of tool. But one thing that's essential, and I'll tell you this is, when we have doctors, they have Ivoirians who have a degree in medicine from one of the neighboring countries, where they come. We always wonder, what have they learned? Is this something that will be up to our national standards? So these are all the questions that we have, and they have to be addressed. And this means greater harmonization of curricula in various academic disciplines. So I'll just stop there. I have a lot to say, but I'll stop there.
That you are going to ratify. Please, the last one, the very last question, so I can have the panels to do a very last minute. There is another one there. Okay, two more, and that's it. Please, and I'm going to ask you to be a little bit short, if possible. Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm Mohammed Amin Addis. I'm the director of the Mauritanian Authority for Assurance Quality of the Higher Education. You don't have to apologize to speak French anyway. No, but French is our second language. Anyway, so thank you very much to the panel. We congratulate you for the presentations, and the topic also is very important. I would like to say that Mauritania is the 7th country to ratify the convention. My suggestion is that we need to do a bit of work to convince other countries to ratify the convention. And for this to be done, I think you have to organize workshops during, in the countries that have already ratified the convention to know about this convention. We have ratified the convention, but I'm sorry, a lot of people in our country don't know about this convention. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much also for giving that perspective that it's not just about the authorities and about ratification, but how does society also engages and appropriates. Please, sir, and I'm sorry that I changed.
Oui, merci, merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Jean-Sylvain Bonny, professor and Director General of Quality and Evaluations at the Côte d'Ivoire's Education Ministry. I'm speaking on the heels of what our Director General said. I fully agree with everything that's been said so far. Just one thing I would like to add, and that's this. Since the Quality Assurance Department was set up in Côte d'Ivoire in 2016, there has been a positive trend. And to date, we are now setting up an agency that is truly autonomous and that will be able to play its role in liaising with international standards. That's a very important step forward. We've been working together to militate in favor of the World Convention as well, and now we have Addis. And we sort of feel like if we can, ratify the World Convention, we can always come back and ratify Addis. But we have to make sure that the agencies that we set up have the wherewithal to implement the policies that we are agreeing to, so that across the globe we can have quality assurance about the best practices that are being followed. This is the only way to build trust. Trust between countries, trust in a diploma that comes from a given other country in Africa or elsewhere in the world is duly recognized. I'm a doctor myself, and when it comes to medicine departments, now you've got a deadline so that all of our schools of medicine be brought up to standards. We've done this with a view to harmonizing our curricula, and the credits that you get should be understood by some sort of universal yardstick. We'll soon be having a meeting in Abidjan in June with other people in the network. So again, we can start looking at these issues of transferability of credits and the accreditation of diplomas. Thank you.
Thank you very much for, you want now? Thank you very much. And before I ask the panel to respond and to really give the final ways to go, I think my colleague Abdone wants to mention a few things.
Hello?
Yes.
Ok, d'accord. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. In fact, I just wanted to add a few things regarding the relationship between the World Convention and the Addis Convention. What are the objectives of the World Convention? Because it is about about higher education and accreditation. So it is a transposition of the Addis Convention to a planet scale with the same benefits. So the objectives as to favor mobility, to reinforce international cooperation in higher education, to sustain autonomy of higher education institutions, the culture of quality assurance, to develop the necessary capacities in order to ensure complementarity in quality assurance. So can we apply the World Convention and the Convention of Addis? We can see that we can do both, to ratify one and to ratify Addis and then the World Convention. The difference is that if we take the Addis Convention ratification first, what we have is regional academic mobility that you're sustaining. And if you take the World Convention, this applies to all countries that have ratified this convention. So what is the threshold to be attained so that the World Convention can go into force? Addis, we have 10 states by 2019, and for the World Convention today, we only have 14 states that have ratified the World Convention on the quality of higher education. And there are at least 2 of these 40 countries that are here. First, Tunisia and Côte d'Ivoire. So and the Holy See. Thank you very much, Madam, for this addition. So we are 3 already. So the purpose is to continue progressing so that this can go into force. And all of the members of the states that are present here should work for that. We have the director of the National Quality Assurance of Mauritania has said it, as many others have said. We have to reinforce our commitment for the Addis Convention and the World Convention. This was also mentioned by the Secretary General of the AAU.
That is not about choosing one or another. It's really about making sure that from regional to global and from global to regional, we really make sure that we create the quality of assurance, the quality assurance we need, the cooperation we need, and so on. I have a microphone, so thank you. And so really, I think this is what we need to take home, is that there is a lot of work to do in the region, in the African region with the Addis Convention. We need to do South-South and support also the Buenos Aires Convention. I was lucky enough to be still in the region when the convention was approved by the member states. So we need the ratifications, so the good practices, but we need also to go into the global level if indeed we want to make sure that higher education is at the service of development and is at the service of the people and is indeed a public good. My dear panelists, 1 minute, something that will inspire us forever.
Just to say that UNESCO has a role to play. After this meeting, let the outcome of this conversation today be packaged and be taken to the office of the Commissioner of the African Union Commission, and let it be placed as one of the agenda in the next Ministers of Education Conference in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and we will work together on that and with African Union to make sure that that's there. Yes.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. A few comments first about what was said regarding multilingualism. Am I not being heard? Can you hear me? For multilingualism, it is very important to take into account all of the existing languages of Africa in order to facilitate the exchange and recognition. And this is to be developed from now on. We have to develop the French language, but together with the other ones and not against them. Secondly, there's the issue of equivalences that bring about many problems in Africa. I think that the convention should avoid going on a case-by-case basis. This is what we've been doing so far. This takes a long time, and sometimes this hinders mobility because the answer takes too long to reach students. So finally, I would also like to say that our organization is very much committed in two things that was said in previous comments: the accreditation agencies and organizations for quality assurance. We will hold a regional meeting in Abidjan about the convergence in Africa in terms of quality assurance. So we think that this is going to be a very important partner for all university institutions in Africa. And a last point, which is a personal one, but I think that politically it is nevertheless important. In order to expand the convention, we would have to avoid too much of a politically correct speech and try and answer two or three key issues, which is what is my interest in adhering as a country, not theoretically. Secondly, what is the precise cost for this kind of a convention? Because all of the preparation, the technical preparation that I alluded to before for good governance in order to be able to ratify, this implies a cost. So what cost is this? And thirdly, is there any aid from the part of international organizations or from countries that are more advanced than others so that we can advance more quickly? If we answer all of these questions, I think that we're going to have many more countries that are going to ratify it. Thank you very much. I would also like to say that all of the work should be done in this way, and I would like... We cannot talk about harmonized credit.
Kind of global platform. And finally, one point that I would like to say is that we always say the world is a global village. And COVID has shown us that we are global. It didn't stop at one country, one territory, one region, or one continent, right? It was global. And we always say that our students, the future generation, will have to respond to global challenges. The Addis Convention, the global conventions, are all tools, instruments that will enable our young learners, our future graduates to be really prepared for that future world, and this is my message.
Thank you very much, and maybe just recovered something that was mentioned also by you, the role also of the regional economic communities in the continent. In the case of SADC, that's where Rosa, our office, works closely with the Secretariat, was really also in a way starting with a smaller group of countries that have a little bit more homogeneity on the systems, and then see from there how can we bring then another regions and build and probably Emma in the LAC, I think it's a little bit about that too, because there are very large systems as Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, Chile growing, and then you have very small systems that somehow become very afraid of being, swallowed, So how to to really do, like you were saying, Professor, how to use countries that are more prepared to address the conventions and to ratify the conventions because they have quality assurances, they have credit systems, they have already mobility of students and staff among the big fives, as we call them in the LAC, to support the smaller countries to really be free and be open to learn and to grow with the bigger countries, because it's a different situation than we have in Africa. But I think you can also give some good advice to ESALC how to support the ratification of Buenos Aires.
Merci beaucoup. En fait, il y a un...
Thank you very much. There's an essential point in the two conventions, which is the dimension of inclusion. The Addis Convention, just like the World Convention, takes into account the situation of migrants, of people that are displaced, people that have been abused, specifically people that are victims of conflicts that find themselves in a different country from one day to the next. So this is a dimension that is very dear to UNESCO. We have struggled for that. And in the Addis Convention and the World Convention, we insisted that this dimension is taken into account. The Addis Convention, just like the World one, takes into account distant learning also, which is very important, which has allowed us to take forward this good work that has been done. Thank you.
We pass a few minutes. Please, to the panelists, a round of applause. And to you also participants, a round of applause, because we do count on you to keep working, because 14 is not enough, and we need to keep working.